Hi there, my name is Fatih Kamal and I'm here to talk about Android. So what's Android in brief? Android is a mobile operating system designed and developed by Google. And it's based on that modified version of the Linux kernel. And it's mainly designed for touchscreen devices such as mobiles and tablets. And recently Google developed it for televisions, choose Android TV, and also it has Android Auto for cars and Wear OS for wrist watches. So that's Android in brief. So if you want to become an Android developer, what it takes from you to become an Android developer? You have to learn some skills to start writing your first Android apps. First thing you have to learn the programming language that we are using to write Android. So Android uses Java to write that application with it. So Java was one of the most programming language in the world. It has very large community and it's easy to start learning. You'll find a lot of courses and a lot of tutorials to start learning it. Second thing you have to learn is the XML. What's XML? XML is like markup language. You used it to describe your layouts and views that you will present it to the user interface. And you have also to be familiar with SQL. SQL is a structured query language. Use it to store and retrieve data from databases. Use it to manage databases between in the app. Last thing you have to learn about Android SDK. Android SDK it's like Android framework. It's Android libraries and tools and all these things. So if you are get to these four things, you can start write your first Android applications. Now I want to talk to you about Android topics. First, I want to talk about Android components. So Android has main four components: activity and surface, broadcast receivers, and content provider. So first thing is activity. So what's activity? What is an activity? Activity is just the screen that greets the user if you open any apps and any Android apps like Gmail. For this first screen is that activity. So the activity can like entry point for user interface. You use it you can interact with it, and you can use it to navigate from another activity to another, from an activity to another one. So that's an activity. Second thing is the surface. So surface is a component that runs in the background. If you have a long operation, takes time to be done. You don't have the user don't have to wait until it's done, then he can use your app again. So you can run it in the background and user can continue using your app. So that's the surface. And the other thing is broadcast receiver. Broadcast receiver is just listen. You are listening for something heavy, like you listen to receive a message from another app, or you're listening to like you can listen for the internet if the device have an internet connection or not. So you are just broadcast to listen for something that's coming from now. So the last thing is content provider. Content provider that using it to provide data between apps and you can use it to provide your data to another apps and asking data from other apps. So that is our four main components for Android. Now I want to talk about Android layouts. So what's Android layout? Android layout is just a view container that contains all the view inside it. Android has many layouts that can serve on the way of you want to present that views, whatever are the views, whatever they are, texts or buttons or images or input the user can write onto it. The first layout that Android has is a linear layout. Linear layout can represent the views in a linear way. whether it's vertical or horizontal. You can represent your views in a vertical way, the views in one under another one, or you can represent it in a horizontal way. So that's the linear layout. It's just very simple layout. And the other layouts are relative layouts. Relative layouts represent the views relative to each other. Like if I have the views here, and the other views can be in the bottom below the views, or to the left or right, or the top of the views. Relative layout just represents views relative to each other. The other layouts is frame layouts. Frame layouts, it's you can represent views inside it, but you can put a view in a top on another view. That's the feature of the frame layouts you can use. And now recently, a couple years ago, constraint layouts comes out. Constraint layouts is very it's makes your UI more responsive, and it doesn't have to it doesn't make you to have nested layouts, which makes your layouts load faster. How constraint layouts works? Constraint layouts work is that each view you have in constraint layout must has its constraint. It must has a vertical constraint and horizontal constraint. Like this view, I must constrain it to on the top of something, or to left or right to something. That's the constraint layout in a brief. You will get more familiar with it if you get started working with it. And after we talked about activity and layouts, which that activity can represent that layout, we'll talk about activity lifecycle. Meaning by activity lifecycle is that from the moment that activity starts appearing to the user, when the UI when the user starts seeing UI components, until the moment that the UI ends or disappears from in front of the user. Through that two points, that activity goes through many methods. The first method that activity goes through is onCreate method. In that method, the main thing that that method do is that setting the views in that activity. After onCreate method, it goes to onStart method. After that, goes to onResume method. Then the activity start doing its work until start to end it. It doesn't go to the end directly. It goes also through many methods. First method to go through is onPause, onStop, and onDestroy. So why all this method? It depends on the situation you are. If that the screen is still appearing to the user, so that that activity is on resume method. That is the activity is continuing its work. But once that view start disappearing from the user, but you have to define what's the meaning of disappearing from the user. Like if the user is opening an activity and something interrupted, like it's receiving a call, or something dialogue starts showing, but something coming in front of that activity, but activity is still in the background. So in this case, the activity goes through on both methods. The activity didn't destroy it yet. It's still in the background. Once that user moves that dialog from that activity goes back to on resume method. It doesn't start from and create. Starting from and resume method. Another situation when the user click in the home button, that activity goes on stop method. It doesn't destroy it yet. Maybe it's still working in the background, but it goes through on stop method. Once the user opens that activity again, it will continue from on start method. And on boot and after on start, it goes also to on resume and start continuing its work. But when the user starts closing the whole application or moving from another, leaving that X screen and something else appearing to the user in the same application, that activity goes on the string method. On the string method, that means that activity has been destroyed. It's not even in the background. It's completely ended. If the user wants to go back to that activity again, it has to start from the beginning, from onCreate method, and continue to onStart method and onResume method, and then continue starting its work. So that's how the activity lifecycle working. The last thing I'll talk about is Fragments. What's Fragments? Fragments is another Android app components that represent a self-contained portion of user interface in an activity. You can consider it as a mini activity or UI module. You might be wondering why I'm using Fragments, why just using activity. But the power behind the Fragments is you can use multiple fragments in the same activity, or you can use the same fragments in multiple activities, which provides you modularity and flexibility of UI. You can build very responsive layouts. And each fragment has its own life cycle, just like activity. So the whole fragment is tied to the life cycle of the activity itself. So you can build multiple fragments in the same activity, which can use it multiple layouts, like in tablets. If you have in your Gmail app in tablets, you'll find it as a list of email on the left and the details of single email on the right. The same views appearing in one screen. That he is using Fragments. So Fragments is a powerful component. You can use it to build flexible and responsive UI. So that's all the topic I want to talk about. See you later.